Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
My name is Ben.
And this week, Ben, we're in the middle of we're at the start of adaptation month. We're midpoint.
Yeah,
We're
mid.
We're half mid. We're somewhere between the start and the middle
And the finish.
and the end of
And
adaptation.
the end of
month.
everything.
Yeah,
Somewhere in
honestly,
the middle of the end of this entire podcast. Who knows?
Who knows? Hopefully. I hope this ends at some point so we can sleep for once. But look, this week, Ben, last week we talked about Ready Player One and it hurt my soul. This week I'm excited to talk about something which brings me more than a little bit of joy because
And
this
an
week...
immense sadness.
And you know what? It makes me hurt. It makes my
Immense
heart
joy.
hurt. But
Yeah.
for a good reason.
For
For the right reason, not the bad heart,
yeah.
heart hurt. Because this week we are talking about Season 2 of a series of unfortunate events.
Which is books 5 through 10.
10?
Yeah.
'Cause
there's
the-
5 books in this one.
'cause-
There's only 4 in season 1, I
Yeah.
believe.
So...
And they're going to run the last 4 in season 3, I guess?
I think so, and then potentially spoilers. Potentially do the other
There's like another series of books, isn't
Yes.
there?
Yes, there is.
There's like
And I'm-
fucking,
Hoping they'll do those because I'm excited.
My only the only
the
thing
wrong
I
things
know
is what it's
about the
called.
books is that there's a fuck ton of them, because last time we did this with
Gabe,
Gabe, I was like, there's like 4 books, right?
Nah, it's
And
a
you were like,
fuckload.
no.
there's also like a whole nother series about Lemony Snicket,
Yeah.
written by someone else.
And that was just like that. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. I thought there were 4. I thought the film just did the first
No,
3,
no,
and there was like
no.
a 4th one on the side.
There's a lot.
No, there's like 12.
One of the funniest things about this season is I don't know why I've read the books and I love the books, but I went into this season expecting it to be a bit happier. I don't know why. I was like, oh, because I know that they're gonna meet the other kids and they're gonna have some friends finally. But
If anything, it just got worse.
I forgot how bad it gets.
Yeah, if anything, this season took the sort of the ideas in the first season and just where the first season sort of had a resemblance of sense and I don't want to say pacing, but sense. It made sense.
You could allocate meaning to certain
Yeah,
things.
you could
and it-
follow, the while still ridiculous, you could still follow the location changes and going, okay, this makes sense.
I think it's because you had the Guardians as your kind of anchor. They were going to a new Guardian each time.
Yeah.
And I think it made sense to split the seasons where they did because
This is very different.
yeah, season 2 sort of you start with Guardians, but then after that you don't get any.
Very
pretty much.
quickly leaves the realm of Guardians and more into the realm of you're just kind of ending up
Which
in-
is kind of refreshing.
it's refreshing, but it's even more
It's
desolate
way
and
worse
depressing.
because they're just these kids on the run.
Because even in the first season, you very much had a sense of location and I guess relevance of each of the locations that they ended up in.
Mhm.
So the first instance where that's where they're just with Count Olaf, and they're
Yeah.
not that far from the city.
Or even from their first home.
Yeah, they're pretty much just sort of down the road.
Yeah.
Because it's the closest, literally the closest living relative, geographically not blood relative, which I find, I'm pretty sure that's one of the jokes. He's physically closest.
Also, the bank are really bad at their job, so it doesn't surprise you.
And then it moves to the snake room, and then it moves to a fairly ridiculous location, but still it moves into locations that you could probably plot on a map, and then moves to the lumber mill.
Correct.
And just sort of up
Yeah.
and down.
And then it becomes
But this one, it's you moved from, okay, you're in the school, which is okay, but even then, the few scenes you get of the outside of the school, it's just derelict buildings for miles. You're where is this?
right, and it's
And they move, and then when they move into they go to the town after that. There's a lot of books.
there's a
in this
lot
one. I'm
of
gonna have to read
so
it up.
I can't remember.
But they when you get to the town, which is just in the middle of
the
fucking
Crow Town.
nowhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then you get to the other town, which is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Which then leads into the
circus.
the hospital and all these other places, which are just at that point you can't map.
There's no because it's just them running.
There's no consistency. Yeah.
and there's an element of I think because Patrick Warburton is Lemony Snicket in this, retelling the story as it goes. I've brought up the cast list.
I'm
by
gonna
the
have to
way.
bring up.
I just because I knew
an
I'd
episode list. Yeah.
fuck it up. because Patrick Warburton is Lemony Snicket and he's narrating the story, they can skip a lot of the like, like if this was a normal story about like fugitives on the run from like a villain and like the police or whatever,
Yeah.
it would have an element of the world trying to explain itself to you as you watch it. Like, they would flee one area and go to another, and they would feel like an obligation to like, it took them this many days to do it kind of thing, and they try and show you the time that it took. Whereas because you got Patrick Warburton who's narrating the whole thing, it has this weird element of surrealism where, especially because he's in the scene sometimes, like that added metafictive thing means that the distance and the weird isolation of the Baudelaires is something they can convey in like spatially in the world.
Yeah.
Like when he talks about them feeling lonely, like they're in a building that's surrounded by desert. And you're like, of course they would.
Yeah.
Or
makes
it's
sense.
like they felt hopeless, and it's like, yeah, and they're in a place that feels hopeless because the space is kind of controlled by the way the narrative is told, and whether or not the world actually exists like that, it doesn't. You don't really think about it. You just accept that's the tone of the show you're watching.
Well, I think the way that it's narrated by Lemony Snicket, I think you have to assume that the world is also kind of, at least to some degree, sort of like modified to sort of fit the character, his sort of like styling of narration.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of motifs in a lot of the dialogue that carries over from episode to episode and scene by scene and season by season,
Or even like just like his life, like the things you learn about him as you go as well.
Yeah, he's for one, he is like very
He's a
closely
present
entwined
character,
with the story, but also stuff like the constant like definitions like mid scene where
I
like
love those.
especially adult characters will sort of just define, or the term is like
Here this
which
means.
in this case mean here this means blah.
One of the interesting things about. Sorry, no, you keep going. I was gonna just yeah.
So like even characters who aren't Lemony Snicket, who are in the world, will sort of just do that to the kids.
Mhm.
And even like Violet, whenever they meet someone new, Violet always introduces herself the same way, or introduces them as a group.
Mhm.
Literally, it's always the same. I'm Violet Baudelaire. Baudelaire?
Baudelaire.
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 I'm Violet Baudelaire.
I thought it was like Violet Beauregard from like fucking Willy Wonka.
Oh, right.
Violet Baudelaire.
Baudelaire.
And these are my siblings, Klaus and Sonny.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time, like whenever they're like at the start of pretty much every book, she says that
Because
at
they
least
have to
once.
introduce them to the new people.
And it's always the same way because it's just Lemony Snicket explaining the
Right.
story.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I mean, I suppose we touched on this a bit in the first season, but something that I was in awe of this season once again was how well they translated the book as far as like having Lemony Snicket as a presence in the story. In the book, he is so like present. Like when you read it, it's his voice. He's adding detail, and it's only as the books goes on that you realize he's actually narrating it and that he's part of the story.
Right.
But in the TV show, they do such a good job of like conveying his voice's imprint on the story, even to the extent where like as you said, he defines words a lot, and that's because in this world, librarians are like heroes.
Yeah.
Like, and they look up to librarians as these kind of like hero figures. Even like Jacques, he falls in love with that librarian, to an extent where I think it speaks to Lemony Snicket where he's idolizing these people who talk about words and they're educated. And I think, and I don't want to spoil why, but I think they're going to tie it together nicely in season 3, especially with some of the revelations. Did you finish the whole season?
Yeah.
So the revelation at the end that potentially Lemony Snicket's partner didn't die when Olaf pushed her off. Did you pick up on that?
She flew away. She flew with the dragonfly costume or something.
Something like that.
And the implication that she was the previous
Yes.
Miss Lulu.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she's the one that turns up to the town at the end.
She's the one that
Gets out of the cab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the one that takes the
'Cause-
sugar thing.
Yeah, the sugar bowl.
Sugar bowl. Yeah.
Correct. Which is such like the way that they did that in the TV show is way more like coherent than the book. The books are good, but
Right.
because they're so insular, like it's a whole book. It's not like, well, how long are the episodes of this? They're like 50 minutes,
They're
right?
50 minutes each, and there's 2 per book.
Yeah, so you're looking at like an hour and a half a bit over an hour and a half of like concentration where you're like following this thing, which is much different to a book where it's like maybe 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, even as you learn that like it was the sugar bowl that was what set Count Olaf off, and you're like, what did the fuck? Why is that important? And even that is a revelation they handled so well. Like I was just stunned by the way that they used the format to construct the narrative, and like when you watch something this well put together and this well like this well loved by the people making it, you can tell. Like everyone there is having a blast. Like Patrick Warburton is loving being Lemony Snicket. Like the kids are having
Neil
a good
Patrick
time.
Harris is just.
Oh my god!
I think he's very.
He is a star in this.
I think I made a comment last season where I preferred because last time I rewatched the film as well as the first season.
Correct. Yep.
And I made a comment that I preferred the kids in the movie to the kids in the show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna retroactively take that back. I think everyone in this film is they've kind of all come into their own, and I think part of it might be either just they've kind of grown on me, but I think some of the writing has improved. Where originally in the first season, the dialogue of the kids was very Lemony Snicket, where it was very kind of like just dry and like, or the writing is just it's a certain way.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And they would in the first season they really delivered it kind of like trying to be funny, but like still trying to be serious.
Yeah, it had an element of like trying to be really snappy when it didn't need to.
Really
be.
being really quippy.
Yeah,
and this one I think they chilled out with the kind of quippiness.
Yeah.
You know, they actually had Klaus kind of be a kid. More.
That's interesting you bring. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, maybe that's why I like.
He has moments of just actual fear instead of kind of like comedic quippy fear.
Yeah, he's sort of, it's curious in this season because Klaus becomes the emotional center of the show, whereas Violet is still the leader, and then Sonny is sort of the Deus Ex Machina type character.
I do like their sort of explanation. So in the books there isn't much time, obviously, because in the books between book 4 and 5, it's just they go to school and then they're at school. But in this, there was like a whole year of filming and editing and stuff. Yeah. So they're quick sort of like patch over of the fact that Sonny is definitely older now. Definitely does not look like a baby anymore. It's just she's not a baby anymore. And whenever a character sort of reference it, like they run the joke at the start where it's just like, we've been here for months and Sonny's starting to look less like a baby, more like a toddler, because
makes sense. That's how kids go.
But even when a character would like, obviously in the script it would have been written blah blah blah, let's go get the baby. Like they may have just put in, a different character would just be like, yeah, more like a toddler.
Right. It's just a nice like acknowledge, because like you can do that because it's a story that's being retold,
and I think you can do that because that, to me, that was also sort of them kind of doing a lot of similar stuff to they did in the first season, where they were very much like aware of the format of the show. So
also to
Netflix,
like, to the point where they're hyper aware of it.
Yeah, in the first season that was a bit on the nose. Like they had Neil Patrick Harris reference Netflix and then like look at the camera, and it was like, yeah, we get it.
I much prefer this season where
the season was a lot better, where the subtlety of like the fourth wall breaks, I guess,
they were much more
they were a lot more sort of, they weren't cringy, they were actually kind of entertaining.
There's a few quips about like someone going home and sitting and watching like a whole season of Netflix by themselves, and
I think Neil Patrick Harris has like a bit of a rant about like how much he hates TV.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's not just like, boy, isn't TV bad? Stare at the camera.
No, it's like a whole, and it's part
like
of his character.
Olaf doesn't like TV.
I will say, now that you brought it up, I did prefer him in this season. I thought him as like, and I think it's because he gets more evil.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in the first season, he's very sinister, and he's like comically sinister. But this one, like, he's ready to cut people's heads off. Well, and I love it.
And I think part of it is like, compare the lengths he went in the first season. They're all just so dumb. Like he's like, I'm just gonna try marrying her. It's like, that's not gonna work. It's just like, then I'm gonna be a sailor. It's like,
it's all ridiculous.
And I'm gonna have a fake wooden leg. And it's like, really?
What are you doing?
It's like this one. His costumes were all very just like, he just kind of exists. Like he's like, I'm the new PE
And his
teacher.
solution was to like kill people to get there. Like it was in the first season, it was like I'm gonna
I'm
insert
a
myself.
yeah.
Here I'm gonna kill
It's
people.
like
and
I'm
then
gonna
take roles,
replace.
which
yeah.
is, and like he's very
And
scary.
also just like by the end of it, and this is done really well, when you sort of have the simultaneous, it's like a simultaneous character, not realization, but like sort of, like you as the viewer will have a realization of just like, hang on, wait a minute, why is he doing this anymore?
Mhm.
And it happens like right at the points where it's like, his sort of now girlfriend, she has the really long name, sixth best banking whatever.
I'm looking for her name. I will tell you when.
It's
I
like
find it.
5 words. Because she's rich, like she doesn't need the money, and she makes a comment where it's just like, why are you still going after
Yeah, why are you
the
doing this?
Baudelaires? I have a fortune, and you're basically
Right, and it's
you're
like his obsession.
yeah, and at that point you realize as the viewer that's just like, oh, he doesn't actually. Like, he doesn't really want, even though he says he's like, I have 2 fortunes now. It's just like, is that really what
It's-
you're going over? And like,
there's
or is
some-
it just a pure, just you've chased them for this long, you may as well keep going?
Her name is Esme. Isn't
Esme,
it?
yeah.
I,
Her full name is.
ridiculous.
yeah.
I will say, like, there is an element. No, you're right. There is an element of his character in this season that he's hard to adapt because, or he's hard to put into TV and film because he's a character that comes across really well by his like his impact on the world,
Yeah.
and it's often really hard to show that if you're doing like TV because, like, he doesn't, he's not a big evil end of the world villain. He's going after like literally 2 sets of kids. That's his only goal.
Yeah, he can't be this big end of the world villain because he's there. He's always there.
Yeah.
And if he's always there, you just kind of get numb to it. But I think in the first season, he was always there, but it was always like comical. It was always just like,
Yeah.
oh, silly Olaf. He's
Like,
being
how does no one
what
know
a,
who he
what a
is?
goof. Like why can't people tell? It's
Right.
him. And like they, in this season, it's still a case of like fucking like they still kind of run the thing where it's like no one can tell that it's him, but it's not really a problem. Partly because in this season, it's just so like they just go to the completely wild places where like no one even knows who he is,
And also everyone thinks he's dead, so no one's looking.
and also
for
yeah,
him,
everyone thinks he's dead.
which is, I think that was a cool way of handling that transition as well because it does. I think at some point you would start to like have an element of disbelief. Where you're like, there's no way these people believe who he is. But the other thing too that I think is interesting is remembering this is Snickett's retelling, so potentially he's portraying Count Olaf's disguises as more foolish than they
It's a
really
bit
were.
shittier. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's an element of that where I'm like, oh, maybe that's why. And
Well, it's
know.
revealed that the disguise kit that Olaf is using is the same that the VFD have.
which means it's effective.
Yeah, and they, if the VFD use it, then, well, because he's part of the VFD. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoils. That's what the tattoo is.
Yeah, I like that. I like that tattoo. I wouldn't say joke, but like motif
it's
where
a
like it
through
actually
line.
becomes a problem.
Yeah, the
It's just
author
like-
put it in there. He wrote like the first 3 books and was like, "Fuck, I need an overarching
Need a
story,"
reason
and the
for the-
symbol existed on all the
Yeah.
covers. So he was like, "That'll do."
He's like, I gotta use this,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
I think so. One of my favorite characters in this is Jacqueline because she's a secretary who also is like running VFD, which is kind of fucking awesome. But also, like, she's one of the few characters that has comical moments that you don't laugh at because they're in the middle of like incredibly serious situations. Like, she'll be under her desk on the phone and someone is like on the other end about to die. And one of my favorite scenes of the whole TV show so far is when she's like, she's on the phone with the guy who's in the fridge, Larry, the
Yeah.
waiter, and she's like, okay, well, I'll call someone. And then she's like, Snicket, I need you. And I was like, wait, what? And I've read the book, so I know it's not Patrick Warburton's Lemony
Yeah.
Snicket. I know it's Jacques Snicket, but I'm like,
Well, even I was like, wait, what?
I was like, wait, what? Is he gonna be on the? And then it turns out to be fucking Nathan Fillion, and I
Yeah,
died
Nathan.
of happiness. I was like,
yeah,
thank you, God.
That's like I was gonna
Oh.
ask you like,
With a sexy mustache. He's so handsome,
I
and his
think
hair.
I think Nathan Fillion in this is like he knew what he was about.
stole the
like
show.
he knew why he was there,
He was supposed
and like
to be sexy.
whenever they gave him the moments to be a bit Nathan Fillion, he was just like,
Oh.
I'm a Nathan Fillion.
he was so cool.
It's like, what's this? A cowboy scene? Oh,
I
you
got this.
know, I'm gonna Nathan Fillion this up.
him and Olivia Caliban when they're just banging through like the desert.
Yeah,
they're awesome, but they're not my dream couple. I think Nathan Fillion and Jacqueline would be like my dream couple in this scenario,
Right.
because I just think they could kill anyone together.
Yeah.
Or like save anyone. But yeah, I love that they didn't need to dress up as cowboys. They just wanted to. Like they could have just gone into the town. But he's like, no.
He's like, no.
Listen here.
We only get to do this once.
so
I'm
good.
only in this for 2 books.
Look, I get a little shot at this and then I'm dead. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna make the most of it. I thought everyone in this was fantastic as far as like the casting and the acting. My only complaint is that the other kid, the Duncan Quagmire,
Right.
had a few moments where he clearly like misread lines or like just didn't really deliver it properly, and they just kind of cut around it. And I started to notice it as the show went on. It's not his fault. He's a kid.
He was just they were the kids from the first season.
Yeah, well, I think he was just the weakest link. Like it was only obvious because the other kid actors were so good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I think normally, like with kid actors, they're all bad, so you notice the good ones. But I think he was just not as competent. The other girl, though, what's the other Quagmire girl's name? Isadora. I
Yeah.
thought she was great. Avi Lake. I don't know how you pronounce her name, but she was fantastic.
Yeah, she was pretty good.
Carmelita Spatz is one of my favorite interpretations of anything ever.
So
she's the girl that is in the pink dress and she tap dances
Oh my
everywhere.
God.
She was incredibly annoying,
Oh
and I
my
thought
God.
they did that so well.
her song motif when she
Holy
like
shit.
when she, the scene where she like comes in at night and sniffs the cake, which by the way, it's just so fucking
So
dumb.
fucking weird. It's so fucked up.
They like the song in the background has this like xylophone playing like the and my name is Carmelita thing.
It's incredible.
Like, I was like, I'm so annoyed that I recognize that.
That- Yeah,
just
it's in your brain
in the
now.
same episode.
Well, that
Yeah.
and like the moment where she's talking to Larry and they do the Spice Girls. When he's
dude,
like,
tell me
"Tell me what you want, what you really want." She's like, "I'll tell you what I want, what I really want."
Yeah.
I died laughing. I was like, "Oh fuck, come on, guys!"
I think
So
in
funny.
terms of like that sort of stereotypical kind of like, I don't know, psycho crazy scary
I think they
kid,
nailed it.
that she absolutely fucking
What a piece
like,
of shit.
st-
What a piece of shit. Yeah, like someone just give her a good clipping around the ears. You know what I mean?
I think her as a character works really well because they're able to kind of, that book is important for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, because it's the first for this season. It's the first book,
Mm-hmm.
and it acts as sort of the introduction to this season, and just like shit's still fucked. But also you get Larry is fleshed out a lot more in that, and because he's actually quite important in this season. Pretty much all of the adults get a lot more sort of like actual, I guess, revealing in character development.
I don't even know if it's
In the-
if it's revealing as much as it's just like
Well, in the first season, it was always like the like post credit or like post final scene, pre credit scenes. It would have like little bits of the the VFD kind of like just talking or relaying, and like in the first season, it was just like, are these the parents? Like they might be the parents, like it's not, but
Yeah.
It's
probably the parents of someone else.
It's probably it was the parents of the Quagmires.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's very much they're actually characters now. They're not like sneaky side plots.
Which I think that comes from the fact that this season, it's what we talked about before with like the location thing. The first season was setting up this world and these characters through that series of like Guardians, and this one is like, okay, now it's all bets are off.
Yeah.
And that's when you go, okay, here are the characters. Even like getting to see, I thought the way that they did the VFT headquarters and the ball, that was all incredibly well
that scene
done.
was really cool.
And the way that you get to keep revisiting scenes with new context and new information is something that I really like about the execution of this show. Like those revelations, they give you time to have them yourself.
Yeah.
No one goes like what VFD stands for Volunteer Fire Department, right? And you have several opportunities.
Isn't that revealed kind of at the end of the first season?
Kind of,
I had it in the back of my head the whole time. I was like, isn't it volunteer?
It's
Maybe I
'cause-
just
it was
kind of
'cause-
put it together because they put out.
well,
fires.
also Gabe and I talked about it in our podcast, so that was probably way.
That's probably why.
why.
Yeah, I think you guys spoiled me.
Yeah, soz.
I mean,
But
you can
don't
figure
really
it
know what
out,
it means
yeah.
until this season anyway. So
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you get to. There's several opportunities in this season where you get an opportunity to work it out because
Yeah.
they're always talking about fires because Count Olaf loves setting fires, and it's like, why were they formed before that? And that's a mystery that I assume they'll address in season 3. But there's an element of, even when Olivia Caliban is like, it's not, they're not literal fires they're putting out.
Yeah,
It's fires in the world. And then the best part about it is Count Olaf, to get revenge on them, starts setting
literally
houses on
sets
fire.
a fire. Yeah.
That is so poetic, and like, of course, because he's not a
Yeah.
creative man. Like, he's a good actor, but he can't think for like two times worth of shit.
He's like, fire department. Start
start some fires.
man."
It's so on point for that character. But I think, if we're talking about one of the hardest things to do with adaptation is like, and we spoke about this when we did our Annihilation episode, which, by the way, thanks for fucking turning up, guys. That was a huge episode for us.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I told you that. We got a lot of
Yeah.
fucking hits on the iTunes.
I saw some of the views.
Yeah, we got some spikes on
Whee!
the iTunes
To
going
the
up there.
moon.
I appreciate that, guys. But yeah, one of the things that I loved about our discussion about that is the adaptation of that was so well done that it's almost its own thing. Like, it's
Yeah.
the same idea as those Far North Reach books, whatever the series of books is called. But it's separate enough that it's got its own identity. And I think this show has proved that if you get the right showrunners involved and you cast Patrick Warburton in the thing, you're going to be fine.
You're gonna nail it.
Yeah, him and Neil Patrick Harris.
Patrick
if they were in
Harris, yeah.
everything, like, are you kidding me? Also, by the way, Patrick Warburton should be in literally everything. I've talked about this before, but he is so
He's a fantastic.
sensational.
He's Kuzco. Yeah.
He's Kuzco.
He is Kuzco. Yeah.
He's Kuzco. He's the guy. He's Joe from Family Guy. He's in everything.
Is he Joe from Family?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Because he's so good.
He
and
is
he has
very
this vibe. He has this, and and then you cast Nathan Fillion as his brother. What a perfect pairing. Like, do you know what I like?
Yeah, it's spot on.
And it's shockingly spot on because one of them is like the kind of stern Patrick Warburton type, and the other one is
got a
Nathan
bit-
Fillion.
He's got a bit
sexy
of
one.
he's got a bit of meat on him. Like
Yeah,
he could
he's
bust through a
wide.
wall.
He looks like a wrestler.
Yeah, and then you've got Nathan Fillion, who's just the scrappy, short, definitely the younger brother.
So good. I love
Yeah.
that dynamic.
Oh,
And
I'm pretty sure he is the younger brother as well.
I think
But,
so, yes.
Yeah.
I would love to see... I would love... And I don't know if they're going to do it in season 3. I don't want to spoil anything, but I would love to see All the Wrong Reasons as a show with them as those characters.
Right.
I would... If that was season 4, I would die... I'd be like, David, what do you want to watch tonight? Just Unfortunate Events again, please.
Yeah.
Because there is something about the way they wrote those characters in this season that, like... Because, and again, it's the promise of something you can't get. You can't get them in a scene together.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't exist, and it's that and the whole show is that, right? The whole show is this promise of safety, and it's this promise of feeling like you've achieved something. It's the promise of coming home to people that love you, and every time it's proposed, Olivia Caliban is in front of them and she loves them, and she's this librarian. You think, oh my god, she's going to adopt them, and then something terrible happens, and it's just this constant longing for safety. And when you look at the structure of the show, and if you're talking about fucking themes and motifs as far as TV is concerned, you could not get more focused than this season of TV, of this season of this show. Because, like, you watch a season of Suits or whatever, and it's like the motif is like finance bankers are bad, or like you should love each other, you should love people despite their flaws, whatever. This show is so like focused on this concept of like, you just want to find somewhere safe, and if you have somewhere safe, that's the only thing that matters. And you should just try and help each other, and you should try and enjoy whatever it is that you have in that space and time. And then it just keeps ripping it away from you, Ben.
It just
keeps
keeps-
taking it away.
Just keeps going. Nah, Count Olaf.
JK, gotcha, bitch.
And all of the in the first season, all of the sort of the big, I guess, points where you're like, oh no, things are going wrong. It's always sort of around. They always tie it to the reveal of Count Olaf as like, or sort of the reveal of whoever he's pretending to be.
Yes.
Like they'll kind of, in the first season, you'd get, they'd move in with their new caretaker, fucking what? Guardian. And
You had like a moment there, didn't you?
yeah, I was like, it's a G word. And that you'd have like a solid
Caretaker.
like 10, 20 minutes of like things just being fine.
Yeah.
And then you'd get the Count Olaf.
Right, because you need to feel at home with the
Yeah.
Guardian.
But in this season, like they would rock up to an area and be like, this kind of sucks. And then like Count Olaf would just be like, yeah, this does suck, doesn't it?
Do you think do you think the reason that works in the season is because taking the place of what you said in season 1, which is that safety element, taking the place of that is this time you spend with the adults where you feel hopeful they're going to help them? Do you think that because they have that role?
Yeah,
you know?
because in this instead of like a guardian being assigned and then that being ripped away quite quickly,
Right. You have the VFD.
It's more of you have sort of the new location and then the obvious, because at this point it has to happen. Like you have sort of they get the Count Olaf thing out of the way. They're
You
like,
need to know
yeah,
it's him
he's here.
immediately.
You know, him and his troop, they're gonna be here. Here they are. Or like, here's how he finds them again. Because in all of this, they're not really running away. They're kind of just like running in the same direction that he's kind of going anywhere.
That's and they end up
or getting into his boot and
or,
like
yeah,
on
or like
purpose.
because he has the Quagmires.
Yeah. So they're kind of chasing each other. So like it's inevitable that they're going to be together.
Right. Yeah.
So
they are chasing each other.
Yeah.
Huh.
And so instead of it being like, oh no, it's Count Olaf, it's that thing where it's just like it kind of builds more tension because you have this. Yeah, you usually have like that one adult who is like, maybe they're going to be the one, and like they sort of characterize it. And so instead of it being like this slow, gradual, and then sort of midpoint. Or sort of that peak at bit in the middle where Olaf gets revealed, you're like, oh no, and then it kind of just slowly falls apart, and then like the climax, it's like you just get the reveal out of the way. You're like, whatever, it's Count Olaf, and you're basically starting at the lowest point.
Yeah,
and you slowly build up over the entire like 2 episodes,
and they crush your heart,
and then they crush you at the very end. Like it just all happens right at the end.
It is like the last 5 minutes, and you're like,
yeah,
fuck.
Because the first season, because they had the same kind of setup of splitting each book in half. The first episode would be like, or the first part,
half would be
book would be like, oh, it's fine. It'd
fine.
be the happy one,
and sometimes at the end you get like the reveal that it's all off, and then everything would fall apart.
And everything will fall apart in part 2. But this one, it's like both parts suck.
And now that you put it like that, it's super true.
Usually the middle of part 2 is just, or the end of part 1 is usually just a sort of general cliffhanger, or sometimes they kind of flip the script and they sort of pull in like an anti-climax, like a high point where it's just like a big reveal of something that on the surface is really good.
Right.
And
like
you're like, oh, I need like this. This is the big break. Like
they discover where the Quagmires are.
Yeah, or like or someone from the VFD arrives, or
right, and then it never ends the way you want. I will say though, I think or
like Miss Lulu is revealed as being
Olivia.
Yeah.
That was, by the way, that episode, because I watched this all in a weekend. Like I
watched this pretty much yesterday and the day before,
and which sucks because I wish that I could like spend more time with it, but I had to just like I had to watch it.
I had to cram it out.
Yeah. But I will say something I love about that particular transition, right, is you go from like a bunch of like the hospital is this horrific. The hospital is, I think, one of the darkest like sequences in this show.
The fucking constant singing from the other VFD. It's just
oh god, that's a tough one to watch. And then you go from that and then there is this when it's revealed that it's Olivia. And again, I've read the books, but like I was this speaks to like how well the show is made. I was there. Like I wasn't thinking like, well, Dave, what happens next in the book? I was with it. I was like present. And when you find it out, I literally breathed a sigh of relief. I was like, oh my god, thank God. And then the episode ends, and my brain was like, dog, she dies soon.
When she was revealed, I was like, oh no.
It's a bit of both, right?
I had a feeling where I was part of me was just like, it's a weird thing where it's like I'm glad that they're getting a bit of respite, like the characters, which is a weird kind of thing.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's weird to be like, oh, I'm glad the characters are going to be happy for like 10 minutes until this inevitably
they made
goes
you
wrong.
Care so deeply. Like this show makes you care so fucking much that you literally are like, hey,
you
5
know
minutes,
what's gonna happen.
A good night's sleep is good.
Yeah, like, maybe this will be fine.
Fuck, dude. How do you? Hey, listen. Unfortunate events. Producers, directors, screenwriters, everyone involved, fucking like pat yourselves on the back, have a bottle of champagne. Like you guys did the thing that no one can do. You took a beloved franchise and you adapted it in a way that is both interesting,
nailed it,
different, and like compelling.
Yeah.
Fucking roll in your grave, Harry Potter. You fucking waste of space. Like, could you imagine if someone came up to you and they're like, "Listen, there's like 12 or 13 books, and then some like 3 or 4 other ones. It's really complicated, and it's a very sad story about a bunch of orphans having a bad time."
Yeah.
And you went,
and also every book is basically the same.
And you went, that doesn't sound like good TV.
Yeah.
And then they handed you this. You'd be like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, well, it's weird how
incredible.
Like even in the first season, like pretty much all of the stories are very similar, and pretty much every 2 episode block, so every book sort of has the same kind of just idea. It's move into a new place, bad things happen, move into the next place. Like,
Yep.
that's the show. But they managed to take that and just kind of like intertwine just enough kind of intrigue and actually have decent writing and just a really good casting with, you know, some of the choices they made. And it just like, it just meshes. It's beautiful. And it's like every episode is, even if the break between the 2 days I watched this was like at the end of part 1. So like I was like next day starting with the part 2. And even that was like still engaging. It wasn't like a thing where it's like, oh, what happened last time? What's going on? Like, why do I care? And it's like, even though that's the middle of the book, it doesn't feel like you're sort of starting a story halfway.
Yes, which again, yeah, actually, no, you're right. Yeah, because each episode is its own contained narrative.
Yeah, even though they're paired up in twos, they still manage to. And that's kind of why compared to the first season where like you really have to watch them in the pairs, or else the first one's just a really happy story that ends on a cliffhanger, and the second part is just depressing.
No, you're totally right.
And you're just like, oh, this one's just kind of sad.
It's weird.
You have to watch the first season in those film length blocks, essentially.
It's incredible
like,
that
in those books. But
really
this
good
one
point.
you can kind of just watch it whenever,
yeah.
and each of them are engaging on their own.
If that's not a fucking achievement, I don't know what is.
It's
do you know what I mean? That's incredible.
I think it's good because I think the first season is like still good that it exists in the current format.
I think it's excellent, but it's still incredible. But the second season is better somehow.
Second season is better.
Which, if that's how you're gonna run a TV show, then keep going. Like, if you're gonna
and
say,
I feel like the format they've gone with the second season probably wouldn't work for the first.
No.
I think they really
which is so smart.
looked at what they had and went, we can't just do the same thing with 5 books now. People won't want to watch that.
And that's even clear from like the presence of the VFD and the flashbacks to like Patrick Warburton.
There's just a lot more of it.
Yeah, there's more. Like they were able to set up the world and the characters in the first season and introduce the intrigue.
Yeah.
Second season is the exploration of that, and the third season will be the wrap up
reveals,
of that.
yeah.
And the reveal and the realizations and all of the revelations and stuff like that.
I liked the sort of reveal of a third season. Just the setup of the belly of the beast. Right?
Yeah.
At first you're like, what? Like we're gonna count the number of times the belly of the beast gets said. That one doesn't count. And it's
that one
like,
doesn't count. And you're like, what?
You're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then it's like 1, and you're like, maybe it's gonna get up to like, maybe they're gonna say it a lot, and it'll be like a big thing. And then it's like it happens it's just 3 of them, and you're like, oh, 3, as in season 3, because I was like, and that's not even. They didn't do that and then go like a series of unfortunate events will return.
Also, maybe the number 3 is important in the story.
Yeah.
Maybe VFD has 3 letters.
But there's a lot.
Or maybe there's a third.
There's also
a lot of things.
Maybe there's a lot of things happening with number 3.
Well, that I mean, you've kind of
especially
spoiled that
divisible
for me, but
what?
Because as an audience member, they don't go, oh, yeah, they don't say season 3. They just give you the number.
Yeah.
And apparently it has more meaning. I don't know. I haven't read the books.
Don't know, man.
But
who knows? Find out.
that would be more interesting because that would go back to what we talked about in season 1, where there's like things for the returning.
Oh, if you watch
watch
season 1 again, which I want to at some point when I have time, there'll be so much more that you're cognizant of. There are so many things worked in there. But yeah, even like the tunnels, how did the tunnels come to be? That's something that I'm excited for them to try and tackle. Like all of that stuff I'm really excited about. But I just think, to kind of wrap this all up in a nice little bow, like from what you've said, and the stuff that we talked about, I think the reason that this TV show works so well and that like we do this show every week, and every now and then we're like, fuck, what do we do? And every now and then we're like, oh my God, I want to do this. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Like we have an episode coming up that I know that you're super jacked about, you're really jazzed about.
It's a weird one, but
it's going to be weird, but I'm very excited. And like, that's like an exciting thing. And like the minute that I realized this was coming out, I was like, dude, we have to do it. I'm so excited. And that, for something like, I'm so invested in this TV show and I want it to be incredible. And for them to deliver a season like this is sensational and it's rewarding. And I think that if you're looking for a fucking lesson in any kind of narrative, screenplay, filming, production, anything, this is the TV show you look at.
Yeah.
Especially if you're adapting books.
I'm very excited. for
I'm very
just
excited for more.
more.
Yeah, I love it.
Feed me more.
I'm sad for it to end though.
Do you think they'll run like the Lemony Snicket stories?
I don't know, but I hope they do.
I hope
'Cause
I hope that Netflix looks at
they're
it and
super
goes, "Yeah,
different.
they've done pretty well. Let's throw them some more money."
I would love if they did that as a spin-off. I think
Give less money to shows like Badmouth and give more money to shows like this, please.
Which one's bad now?
It's the one where the grotesque animation that looks horrendous. It's,
that's where puberty's a
Nick
monster.
Kroll. Yeah, Nick
Yeah.
Kroll.
I didn't like that
Yeah,
very much.
it's horrendous.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah, but speaking of very bad, do you have any recommendations for this week?
I do. I'm gonna look it up.
Ben
'cause I
wrote them
forgot what it
down.
is.
He said look
So-
it up and looked at his fucking notepad
so-
for you listening
so
on
you
the
know-
audio.
Do you know the Jackbox games?
Yeah,
So like everyone knows like Quiplash
all those
and
good
like
ones.
Fibbage. Those are like the big ones. Jack Party Box 4 has like the last game on the list, and no one plays like the last games on the list. Everyone ignores those. There's one called Bracketeering, and
It's gonna get real deep in
it's
indie.
fucking fantastic.
What is it?
So you know in like Quiplash and like Fibbage and stuff, you have to actually be like smart and or funny.
I'm both of those things, so yes, I do know that.
In Bracketeers, you don't have to be either of those things. The game is funny for you.
Oh, tight. I like
So
it.
the game just gives you a prompt, and it's just like, what is the best seafood topping? And you'll be like, crab sauce. I don't know. So you write crab sauce, and then it in the first round it puts like two words against each other, and you just vote on which one you think's the best, and then it goes to the final round. It's like whatever. It's like best seafood topping.
Yeah.
But the later rounds, it was where the game is funny for you, and you don't actually have to put any effort in at all.
Mhm.
Is where you'll get a prompt. It'll be like, what's the best seafood topping? And you'll be like, blah, blah, blah. And then it'll be like, all right, now we're going to change the prompt. And you're going to vote on the same words, but different prompts. So it'll be like, what's your favorite seafood topping? To like, what's the best replacement for lube?
That's incredible.
And then you just vote on that.
That's an incredible idea for a game.
and
What the? That's amazing.
and then in the third round, it changes like multiple, like every round.
No.
it changes.
That
So
sounds incredible.
So at first you're like, oh, this is the funniest answer, and then suddenly the prompt changes, and suddenly this thing is hilarious.
Dude, that's hype. I love
and
that.
the
idea.
game's just funny for you because you just answered honestly, just like, what is the best topping for seafood?
Yeah. Hey, are you
And then
guys
the
having
game's
a
funny.
party with unfunny friends? Play that
Oh
game.
yeah. If you have the problem where like you want to play Quip, you want to play like these jackpot games, but none of your friends are funny, play Bracketeering.
It's tough for Ben and I
Bracketeers.
because we're both like we both
we
have
have that
comedic
humor key, but like
and it's
a
tough
lot of
with other
unfunny
but a lot of our
friends.
friends don't. And it's really hard
Look,
because they think they're funny.
Laura is very vocal about how she's not funny, and
Yeah,
we were playing Bracketeering with a group, and
it was good fun.
It was good.
Yeah,
time.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I've been I've
So that's my recommendation.
no, that's your
A
recommendation.
mini game in a party game pack.
This week's been kind of a nightmare for me, but I just because of a lack of sleep and all kinds of things going on. But I started rewatching Puberty Blues, which is based off the books. Puberty Blues was a Channel 10 Australian produced drama that went for 2 seasons, and it is
I think I vaguely remember.
it is one of the. I don't say this lightly, but it's one of the best dramas I've ever watched. It's like set in like a high school in like Cronulla or something. Like it's very Australian.
That's always a very
But it's-
spicy place to set anything.
but it's set in the
nowadays.
70s,
Oh, okay.
so it's really interesting.
So before the riot,
Before there were knives and drugs.
before that city got tarnished forever.
yeah, it's really, really interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. And I wasn't expecting to, but it's
I
fantastic.
think I remember that one.
It's full of a bunch of famous Australian
Yeah,
actors that
yeah,
you'll look
yeah.
at and be like, "Were they in this?"
Yeah.
It's on iTunes. It's still expensive, but it's worth it. I super am having a good time. So highly recommend. Otherwise, on Netflix, I am rewatching Doctor Who for like the 25th
Oh.
time. So
Oh no.
I'm up to Matt Smith. So
Wow, that was quick.
I sit on the exercise bike and watch an
Right.
episode a day. So
you powered through like 4 seasons.
well, I've been rewatching it for like 2 months.
Oh, okay,
So it's not
yeah,
like but when I sit on the spin bike, I'm just watching
I'm
episodes.
yet to finish. We're like season 7 or 8.
It gets really hard around
Yeah,
there.
we've
I would
just
wait
kinda,
for
like,
the
dropped
reboot
off.
that's coming and then go from there.
I think we may just start up again when.
Yeah, well,
when
Jodie
we
Whittaker's
drop
season
off.
is like a soft reboot. Apparently.
Yeah, I might just
Um,
watch the final of
To be,
Capaldi. And
Don't.
Don't.
it's so
No?
bad.
Okay.
Like,
I won't.
It is beyond
Welcome to
comprehension.
AFA. We're going to talk about.
Like I'm. This isn't a bit. It is. Do not watch it. It will ruin Doctor Who for you.
All right, sure, I will avoid
But also
it.
the new showrunner's gonna be bad because he's done a bunch of bad stuff. So,
Whee!
it's fine. But look, listen, Ben. It's that time of the week. Where can people find us?
Facebook,
DCM Works, a social.
YouTube,
YouTube.com/DCM Works.
Twitter.
Twitter. We're at
Twitter, we're
Twitter.
at.
We're at Twitter.
Hey, Twitter.
We're on Twitter. Hi, Twitter.
We're at.
We're at
DCM.
We're at DCM _ works. If you follow that, it's basically just
It's just this.
the content. Like we
Yeah.
just post content. We don't like tweet anything else. So you can just follow us there if you want to get the content.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/DCMworks. And I'm excited to tell you, Ben, that we have our potentially final week of our Road to
Ooh,
Infinity War podcast
We
this
are
week.
getting there.
Where each week we have watched, basically in the lead up to Infinity War, we watched every single Marvel film. And
Marvel
I
Cinematic Universe film.
fucking do not care about them anymore.
Yeah.
But last week was incredible. I
this
cried in
week-
both films.
This week is gonna be.
And this week I'm going to have a good time
incredible.
with and have a good giggle and a good laugh because we're talking about Thor Ragnarok.
We went to see the new Pacific Rim,
Mm-hmm.
which by the way is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a trailer for Infinity War to start, which I'm disappointed because I was trying to avoid the trailers, but I guess it's unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
And I am excited for Infinity War now. I have no apologies.
I'm
I'm
excited.
excited for Infinity
I'm
War.
excited to see a bunch of Tony Starks on screen because
I think your theory about Hulk being in Hulkbuster is 100% true.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with
I also
you.
think Pepper Potts is in the suit that gets slammed into the ground by Thanos and she dies.
I didn't think
and
I saw that, but I agree with the Hulk one.
Okay, yeah.
Just the way the Hulkbuster moves.
it moves in a certain way.
It moves in the Hulk way.
That's all I'm
It's definitely
saying.
got a Hulk boy
That's
in
all I'm
it.
saying because fucking what's his face doesn't have any film. I think he's got one contract left.
Yeah.
Mark Ruffalo.
Maybe they're just gonna
Yeah, who knows? But
fire him into space. He's never seen again.
if you want to hear more of this for like literally hours,
Literally hours.
like we
and
did
hours.
this, we're on like week 8 this week.
Yeah.
Go to patreon.com/DCMworks. If you subscribe for more than $3 a month, you get access to all of our previous podcasts. There is about 50 episodes worth of additional content. We're adding more stuff every week. There's stuff like part 2s to AFAs. We got a part 2 on Annihilation coming up we want to do, which I'm fucking excited
Yeah,
about.
I'm very excited.
And get access to our Patreon-only audiobook interface, which is a spooky exploration into a world that is all kinds of fucked up and weird. It's definitely worth checking out. I really enjoy it. We've got part 7 coming up soon if I can ever finish editing that one. Putting a lot of TLC into it because it's a good one.
Yeah.
And
there's some wild shit in that
some
one.
stuff in that one.
Yeah.
Man. So you can check that out. And big thanks to all of our patrons who do support us. It helps us keep the show running, pays for the servers, all that stuff. Big shout out to Yup Kumans, our top Patreon this month once again. Doing God's work. We appreciate it. And if you don't know, we do a bunch of other stuff as well. I make video essays. I put out a video essay this week about Assassin's Creed Origins.
I don't do much else.
Ben is busy, but if you want to see that, all the links are in the description. Come say hi on Twitter at the DCM Works tag if you have stuff to add. We also follow hashtag AFA pod. But as always, I'm at DCM Pie,
I'm at Literal Citrus.
and we will see you guys next week.